Hear the world calling, but son, don't you listen. They're only trying to drag you back into prison, that's right.
Welcome back to What Have You. I'm Rachel Jankovic.
I'm Becca Merkel.
And we're on our original spot, our vista behind Goodwill.
Our lonely lookout.
And I was able to purchase a tubular end table at Goodwill tonight.
Which is hilarious.
For $9.99.
I saw it. I stood there and I pondered it. I was like, this is rad. It's cool. It doesn't quite go with my decor. If we wanted to dignify what I have with the word decor.
You have decor.
I have a few like rough gestures at decor right now.
No, you have solid decor. Yeah, you do. What's happening in my house right now is a transit of furniture that never belongs anywhere because we are in my parents' house while we're building. And we do not have the right furniture for their house.
Yeah.
But we're also hosting Sabbath dinner, so we're setting up tables in the living room all the time. So now we have it's like a large living room with an occasional chair in it.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
Well, I was glad you got this end table because it actually goes really well with the furniture you do have. And I feel like it doesn't.
Yeah.
It does not.
It makes me laugh that we have
gel with
we're going to
mine.
have to figure something out about this because I can't figure out. We have parish group happening on Wednesdays and then Sabbath on Saturday. And so we put the couches and the chair in Dad's office, which functions kind of like a den. And that's nice. It's nice to have them in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. But we just have this large vacant living space for it's not vacant, but it's nearly vacant. It's tables and a couple chairs.
Just get some floor pillows.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it. Bean bags. Whatever that horrible tastic, what is it, the love sack? It's like the size of a planet, the bean bag. So horrible.
I just remember the bean bags of my youth being like Naga hide.
I thought that bean bags, when I was a child,
They were big.
bean bags were like what rich people had.
Along with waterbeds.
We could never afford one of those. We could
man.
never splurge it up on a bean
I'm
bag.
so killed about waterbeds because, down in Boise, they still have a waterbed store. That when you go driving around through some of the fringe places,
There's a waterbed store.
yeah, somebody's still out there buying waterbeds.
So someone told me once if they're great conversion to the waterbed. They were it was.
But I was surprised. Has anybody still got that original waterbed? Is it full of algae now?
Do they last that long? That's the question.
Yeah. Did it puncture? Did it grow mildew inside?
Becca, I can't tell you. I don't know. I have not been looking at waterbed statistics.
Plus, think of trying to move it out. When it was time to move it out.
I remember waterbeds being really difficult with the edge.
Yes, because
the edge was like a hard line.
Yeah, or you'd squidge down in between.
You just couldn't know where to get out.
No.
There was no natural way to arise out of a waterbed.
But I only slept on them at, if you were spending the night at a friend's house. And I just remember the feeling of being, squished down inside between the wood frame.
It's like when we would stay at Granddad's house and our air mattresses would deflate through the night. So you would end up just on the cement floor pretty much.
Yeah,
with the deflated
squeaking, and it would squeak and sort of
squeaky, squeaky, squeaky. and I remember never being able to go to sleep there because, the light was different, the place was different. It was just very hard to go to bed.
And if you got too near the edge, it would just slip you off.
Yeah, and I can remember trying to get, under the little pool table. This will be a cozier place to sleep, but nope, it wasn't. I think it was about a foot shorter than me, so there was no way of that working. And I just remember always trying to reorg and then being up in the night with a deflated air mattress. It was a brilliant time. Brilliant there.
That's funny.
Yeah. Well, okay.
We need to say, though, we had a lull there in our podcasting rhythm. Not because we didn't record it. We did on time. We recorded it. And then we failed to execute getting it put up because in the midst of our running away with our patriarchal
went
discussion,
completely rogue.
we got confused and we began to say things that were just
No,
wildly
we got tangled
inaccurate.
up. But we got tangled up on the twins
Yeah,
that Tamar had, and then we thought
said
we could put a qualifier in, but we had riddled the episode with our failures.
So
there.
actually, if you listen carefully, if you go back through
you might notice that
you'll
I never
notice
come.
that there are some non sequitur remarks in there. It's
I think
because
I said when I looked something up, because I listened to it to see how bad it was without
we
us.
took out all of our inaccuracies.
Because we couldn't figure out how to qualify it after the fact.
The problem was when we started in on Tamar's twins, and we had good things to say about both Tamar and the twins, except we got the names
Except for
backwards.
that we were saying all the wrong things.
Well, we
about
got the names backwards on who had
But
the
I think it
scarlet
was
thread, and then we said that the
Zareph
wrong
or Zara,
one.
and then we had the wrong person with the scarlet thread.
And then we had the wrong one as being the ancestor of Boaz, and we were drawing
basically
conclusions.
at that point we thought we should no longer be speaking. We should
Well,
stop this
we-
nonsense.
I thought we had some good insight until I noticed
tell you.
afterwards it was like, wait, we got that all backwards. Like
Whoops.
we had the wrong
Because
twin.
you went back and did that reading. So
Yeah.
this was a thing.
I'm just saying that's why we
have
had
to
a
say,
lull.
this is what's happening to me. And many of our listeners, this may be an intro of a larger topic than we usually discuss, but heck, after the patriarch episode, why not?
Why not?
Why not go here?
We could just talk about Tamar and scandalize everyone.
we could just go after the Tamar issue. So, but no, we're not going to go after the Tamar issue. Here's the thing that I'm noticing. Well, actually, I have more than one thing I'm noticing. Fancy that. So, first of all, one thing I noticed is that this is a great pace to be reading your Bible. And that is because I am stunned by the fact that we're already back to this.
Yeah.
Like, that was so fast. And I love that since we did that last time, we've read the New Testament 2 times. And we've had, it's been a fast pace. And that is really fun. But something that's happening to me this time is I think I've been post-mill my whole life. Like, I think Dad became post-mill when I was like 5 or something. So while I remember...
I was like in 6th grade, so you were...
He told me just the other day, I asked him. So I was young. Or maybe I was 6, which would mean that you were 10.
Well,
which would be close to 6th grade.
I remember it being a hot topic in
But see,
6th grade.
that's what I was saying is I was young, and yet I still remember Dad having like moments about like Melchizedek, where he was like, I remember there being things that like, it was on my radar even as a young child that there was something big going on here.
Okay.
But the reason I bring that up is because I've been post-mill my whole life, which is about eschatology, end times, what you believe is happening in the end times. More specifically,
what you think
what
is
you
happening
believe
in
is
history.
Yeah, well, what you believe is happening in a lot of the references in Scripture, what you think that that's referring to. Like many Christians believe a lot of passages are about the end times that we believe are about the fall of Jerusalem. So we believe that those things happened in 70 AD. Just to keep on track with last week, let's make some radical errors while we're going.
I'm
Don't
just
you
curious
remember
where you are going? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, you're just hanging on for
I'm
the
like,
thread that will
okay.
be of interest to
Yeah,
anyone.
what are we doing?
Well, I'm just trying to pan this out for
Okay.
the listeners who may not care about eschatology. I want you to know what I'm talking about, which is I have always believed that a lot of those things we're talking about the fall of Jerusalem, which means that and really the big difference in postmillennialism is that we are optimistic about what's happening in the world. We believe it is that Christ's death accomplished what he meant it to accomplish, and that it will work its way out until the whole world comes to Christ, and that is that's what we believe is happening. So the place that we think we are in history is radically different. So
Right.
we would not say when we see something horrible in the news,
It's the sign of the end times.
it's a sign of the end times.
Yeah,
And we don't think that. We think that we're still working, the gospel is still working its way out from what happened. But what I was going to say is that this read through the Old Testament is making me feel even wildly more post-mill than ever, but almost from a literary standpoint, which is funny, but it's because of all of this longing for the Messiah, like generations and generations, and the seed of the woman, and this, and is it in Galatians when it says It doesn't say seeds. It's the seed
Yeah.
because it's Christ. Like we're talking about Christ. But anyways, all of this, you know, and the captivity and the prophets and all of this longing and waiting and yearning and all these women being valiant and things happening throughout all of history. And then we have Christ, and it's easy for people to think like, oh, and then there's Jesus and we just love Jesus. And it's like, but we didn't. Look what we did when the Messiah did come. You know, like, look, when the longed for Messiah came, how did we handle that? Not well. And it's easy for us to read our own role into history as though we would have been better than Peter. Like I would have been like Peter, but not sunk, because I wouldn't have taken my eyes off of Christ, and I wouldn't have denied him because I'm stronger than that.
Throw out a little peeve now that you've mentioned Peter.
Yeah.
Is I've heard before people being incredibly dismissive of Peter for being scared of a little girl. Like, he was scared of this little girl who asked him, and how lame of Peter to be that wimpy. And I just can't get my head around that when you actually read the account, where it's like, what do you mean he's scared of a little girl? He's scared for his life. It doesn't make it okay to deny Christ, but it's not like he was so threatened by a little girl.
But he also followed Christ all the way there.
He followed him there.
He went all the way into the danger spot.
But then he saw him being reamed and an unfair trial, and he's going to be condemned to death. And then when somebody says, hey, aren't you? It's like, no, I'm not. He's not scared of the little girl, for heaven's sakes.
No, it's not like she was going to say something rude to him. It was like the danger of being killed yourself.
I don't know. I've seen that multiple times.
But this is the point I was trying to make about being post-mill. All of that longing. Then we have Christ, and that we see the beauty of what God was doing there, which was saving the world with none of our help. Like, none of it. You know, like, he does this amazing. And everything about it is not what we would have expected. It's not how we think you win. It's none of those things. But I think that I just realized, for pure balance of the story and the scale of the narrative, it's not like, well, then that happened and Jesus accomplished the salvation of the chosen few, and then it's a wrap. Everything else goes to hell.
Right.
Because the reality is that with all of that longing for redemption, shouldn't there be something to balance that out on the other side of the narrative?
Like, Christ did not come to condemn the world,
but to save the world.
Yeah.
And the thing that you think is like, but we also believe that he came to save the world, and he did it. Like,
he's going to.
He accomplished in his death what he intended to accomplish, and that we're not still looking at that as though that was a fail. Like, that was a nice effort by God to do something, and it just got a few of us.
It was a victory, but it was a victory up in the spiritual realms.
Only, exclusively. Yeah, so, but my point is that the more I have the sense of this huge, long longing for the Messiah, and then when the Messiah comes, very little celebration that the Messiah has come. Like, you know, not a lot. Like, there is some. First they
killed him, and then they went ahead and began to persecute everyone who believed in him.
And I think it's also an incredibly post-mill thing that whenever Christians are persecuted, the gospel spreads. Like, that's just one of those things where you see, like, oh wow, talk about God doing things in ways that we would not anticipate. But anyways, I've been enjoying that about the reading, seeing the scale of the whole story differently, because you like hauled through it all the way, and then now you're back. It's like, it's fun to see it that way. But about Peter, I think my favorite thing that Peter does is it says he didn't know what to say, so he proposed that they build 3 tabernacles. Isn't that what it is? 3?
Yeah.
Like, but it says specifically, because he was afraid and didn't know what to say, he proposed a large-scale building project.
Don't we all know that feeling when you begin to talk at random?
I know what we should do. Let's.
I feel like, I'm not trying to compare this to Peter. This is a very tangential thing, but it just reminded me of that. I feel like I run into this trouble when you're talking to someone who won't keep up their end of the conversation. So,
It's the burden of the conversation.
and then you find yourself saying things that you're like, why? Why am I talking
No,
about this?
I feel like my eyes are rolling into the back of my head, and you're like, stop talking about what you did in elementary school, Rachel. Nobody cares.
But the thing is, when you've asked questions and they won't pick up the ball, you know, like they just won't.
Sometimes they won't.
They won't do it.
It's
then
kind
you
of
just
like
have
when
to talk.
When you start a conversation, you're each holding the end of a ladder, and you're supposed to go somewhere with it. And it takes some dueling effort, but sometimes your conversation partner just sets it down and lays on top of it. And you're like, fine, I'll drag this around all evening.
So you stick your head through the hole and then you begin dragging it
And
awkwardly.
usually later, you cannot remember how it happened to you.
No.
All you remember is that you talked way too much about nonsense.
No, and then when you're lying in bed that night, you're like,
All you
"Man,
can think of is
I just talked too much.
where words are many, sin is not absent. You're like, learn to shut up a little, Rachel. This actually reminds me of early in when Luke first came to town. We had a banquet, and he and I, no doubt because someone in charge of the seating also intuited that we would end up together. Many people intuited that.
Yeah.
So it was a sense of the inevitable.
Sometimes you can see it.
It was the inevitable from a long way off. But anyways, we're at a banquet table, and he was all the way across the table from me, so I could just see him soldiering onwards throughout. And as often happens, if you are a chatty person, and it is a chatty person's role in society, and I'm not complaining. So I'm just saying.
Okay.
People put you at the hard to work tables.
Yeah, they do.
Because they're like, well, at least this person will
least
talk
she'll
all night
talk.
about what happened in elementary school. And every once in a while I go on some crusade to try to shut up more, and everyone thinks I'm grumpy.
Yeah.
Like, when you're like, I'm just giving other people more chances to talk, and people will be like, what's wrong? Why are you like this? So whatever. But anyways, Luke is soldiering along because he had some very shy people on either side of him. But the table is too big to easily talk with the whole table.
Yeah, that's
and
a problem.
And it is too big to talk across the table unless you're going to yell over the centerpiece. So I just got to witness him just really, really, really working. You know, where are you from? What do you like to do? How long have you known about this college? Tell me more about how many siblings you have. Like, it was like just, and it's when people are doing things like, yep, no.
Yeah, I have 4.
About a year.
I heard about
Just deadpan.
My brother told me about it.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Just like nothing to bounce back.
Yeah.
Not even like, I've only been here a year. Tell me about you.
Yeah,
You know,
no.
like just no
There's
no
resp-
response.
no.
Like
They do
nothing.
not hit the ball back over the net.
No, and then Luke says, just doing the awkward hardcore like he can do sometimes, he says, well, I've asked you guys a lot of questions. Now you can ask me some. And I almost died. I was like, A, this is probably my favorite person in the universe. B, I can't even believe I get to witness this because the 2 girls on either side of him just turned hot pink. Like, just a panic. Like, he induced total conversational panic.
Yeah.
And one of the girls, I kid you not, said, what's your favorite vegetable? Which is still the funny thing. He was like, well, I am glad you asked. I love asparagus. Don't you like asparagus? I mean, I was just dying.
Well,
it was
okay.
so good.
My favorite was at a particularly difficult banquet table one time. And it was the thing where I felt like I'd been carrying my end of the log for a long time, and so had Ben. He was doing it, and then we had a lot of silent people surrounding us. And then one young guy who was probably like 18 or 19, very serious person, like very, like, also not contributing to the like general merriment because we're trying to keep it like, you know, funny stories, and he was just kind of like sitting
He's the
there.
Debbie Downer of the group.
But then he sort of, in a pause, he says, so what's your favorite color? to me, and from across the centerpiece, you know,
Okay,
all the way
yeah.
across there. And I loved it. I was like, this is awesome because you are trying. So I'm like, I will run with this. So I was like, you know what? I am in a turquoise.
I'm so glad you asked.
I'm in a turquoise phase right now. I feel like I've painted too many things turquoise, and it all started with a flower pot. And I took it to the paint store, and I told the guy, poor man, that I wanted to match the color. I mean, like, you know.
You're like, don't worry,
And I'm
when
like-
I finish this monologue
Yeah,
about
but at
turquoise.
other times, I feel like I've been really in reds. But for some reason, I have gravitated away more into the aqua category. It was so funny, and I just went with
then-
it for quite some time.
Did it not? Did it?
But
there
it was still
no
one of my favorite
questions.
questions at a dinner table. Is so.
Tell me about that. But then,
What's your favorite color?
you know, he had to have just been congratulating
Yeah,
himself that boy
he
did
did it.
I ever get
I-
her favorite subject.
I got the ball.
This is also how Becca one time over enthused about carrot cake. She trying to build up a hostess one time said too many kind words
not
about
even.
carrot
It
cake.
was just a really awkward, very stilted, quiet time,
And so
and they were
Becca
gonna
filled
give
it.
us- yeah, they were
Becca
gonna give us
filled the
carrot
air. Filled the air with.
I was like,
I
oh,
love carrot
I love
cake.
carrot cake.
We all love carrot
Totally
cake.
my
Carrot cake is
favorite.
so great. And then the man led them in a prayer
A prayer over the carrot
over
cake.
the carrot cake.
Not even just
which
dinner. It was
which
just carrot
focused
cake.
in on the Lord's leadership for helping them to intuit Becca's passionate love of carrot cake.
No,
to make her a dessert that would give her so much joy. I can think of few things more awkward than that. You feel the need to be like, I gotta clear the air here. I gotta tell you all,
don't like it
I'm
that
not that passionate.
because
I mean, look, God is good, yes, but in this particular instance, I may have inflated
it
my
was a
enthusiasm.
really long prayer about about what a grateful day we could all have
Oh.
that Becca got to eat her
Woo,
favorite.
doggy! At least Becca got what she wanted tonight. Worked out real well.
And then I hate to say it, but it wasn't my favorite carrot cake. But
So
oh,
basically,
wow.
when you're blabby enough, Becca. Actually, I think our peak moment was when there was some poor fellow who came to town.
Yeah,
And he came to
Yeah.
our family dinner table.
he did.
And if you,
so
funny
it
thing
was
is-
just five of us.
it's just five of us, but it was all five of us feel
Together.
the burden. There was nobody there. Well, Dad probably was the least.
I recall that he was there because it was the 90s, this was less weird, but you know how we were all wearing like long knee-length denim shorts? Like jeans that were cut off above the knee, basically.
Okay.
Hemmed above the knee. He was, and then cuffed a little bit. Remember those?
Okay,
More.
sure. Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm with ya.
he was wearing purple ones. So
Oh.
like purple denim
Right.
short pants.
Well, whatever
and
the
then,
case is-
and then a purple t-shirt. So
He came, and I think he intended to come to NSA, maybe.
yeah.
He came, and Mom invited him to dinner. And
Yeah.
he came to dinner. I don't know what gave him, steeled his nerves to get the man to come.
I don't know,
But
because
he
was
came,
scared to death.
And then he just sat at the table and spake not.
no,
Like, I don't think
No.
he responded to questions.
no, we probably asked him what's your favorite color.
I think, and
how
we're
about
like,
purple?
Is it purple? I think the problem is I don't know what happened, but he was non-responsive. He was
Yeah,
like basically slipping into a comatose
he
place.
might have been
And I think we were having spaghetti.
having a medical condition.
But it was so funny.
I don't even know if he ate anything.
I know he didn't. He had a plate full of spaghetti and he picked not up his fork and he did not speak. And he sat there at the dinner table
Oh.
and basically acted on us like a Mento in a Coke bottle. Like, well, if you're gonna be like that, guess what we're gonna do?
Oh, no.
We're gonna have a 90-mile-an-hour fever pitch conversation with great hilarity and enthusiasm.
But basically, picture us at our worst podcast, sort of talking over the top of each other and laughing.
Plus Nate.
Plus Nate.
Plus Mom probably trying to be like, did you want some Parmesan? What can I do to try to help you? More milk. How can I? And we're getting
we're trying to cover over the black hole that's happening.
and all of us feeling awkward, and I'm pretty sure nobody filling in the gap and making him feel more comfortable.
No, but we were
trying to, but
more
we were not.
and more hilarious as the dinner wears on.
Oh, I think we were making ourselves weep with joy, but it was the unspoken tension of having the deadly guest who wouldn't speak. So because of that, it like heightened the mood substantially. And then he left and drove all the way home and was never more seen. We're like, welcome to town. And then he was already in a bad place before we acted like a bunch of hooligans at the dinner table. But that apparently did not comfort him and make him think he would like to be here.
It didn't bring him into a more casual state of mind.
And so he just turned around and left. And we thought, well, that was a piece of hospitality gone wrong. I'm pretty sure Mom was probably like, children, why?
I remember her feeling like, thank goodness someone was talking. It was like it was...
Really? I'm sure she thought maybe we could have cooled our baby jets a little bit more than
possible.
that.
It's possible we should have reined it in. But wherever you are, man, we're sorry.
This is something that I'd like to say on behalf of extroverts everywhere. Just all of you. Introverts are the only people who are given lots of articles about their great powers. Nobody writes, well, if they do write them about extroverts, I don't read them. Maybe that's the problem. But
could be.
They say that extroverts get their energy from other people. And I just like to say, that is not the case.
No.
It is not the case.
When you have a sort of sucking chest wound sitting over there, it doesn't fuel you up.
It does not tank you up at all. What it does is wear you out in a heavy way. But it is probably true that extroverts, there are people that are energizing because they're easy to talk to or whatever. Yeah. But I just want to say, I've had people think like, oh, well, mothering is just a lot easier for you because you're an extrovert. So having children all over you all day long is just your fave. And it kind of builds you up and gets you full of zip. But it doesn't.
You're like,
it's
well...
No, it doesn't.
Really how
That's not how that works.
Plus, I would never call myself an extrovert. You are, but I really don't think I am.
Well, I think the categories are almost worthless as they exist anyways. Because the reality is not how are you in your native state, but what does God want you to be like? And all of us have a flesh to mortify in that regard. And all of us
have our own things we have to get over when it comes to loving others and behaving like a Christian.
So what that that's your thing you gotta put on the altar. You know, like they're different, but it doesn't define me. You know, the things that I have to submit to God does not define me in any important way.
It's very funny how much our culture wants to simultaneously say, I am defined by nothing, and also, how dare you question it, this is how I am defined.
Yeah,
you know,
but it's self-defined, and that means that you can change your own dang mind whenever you want to.
Well, sometimes we want it to be that, and sometimes we don't. And I feel like those categories are always changing because
you're the ultimate boss of yourself.
No, but oftentimes we want to be defined by certain things because we're getting our defenses in order for why I don't have to do X, Y, or Z because I have these issues, and I can't help these issues, so you can't criticize me. So there's that, but then there's also like, I'm not defined by anything. I'm not defined by whatever. Don't fence me in. It's like, it's very, I feel like we're a bit schizophrenic there.
We're a bit schizophrenic in all places at the same time as a culture. True. I think we're making no sense at all.
No, we're having a big car crash with ourselves right now, I think.
Yep, we totally are.
As a nation.
We totally are. It's I was just thinking today how common it is to hear people say like, I really need to just invest in myself.
Oh my
word. But it's like I'm gonna invest in myself, or also I'm gonna invest in someone else. Like I'm gonna invest something in them. And the thing that's so dumb about this is it is never a question of investing in ourselves. It's a question of investing ourselves in whatever work God gave us to do. Like we're not hoarding like a bunch of little self dragons all the goodies we can come up with. I mean, we try to, but the reality is the whole point should be like, here I am, Lord. Do you know what I mean? Like, take whatever this is, I'm willing to obey. You know, like, and not a lot of self-evaluation. It's like, if God has called it, you give it. You don't need to be always tallying up your supplies that God may ask you to give. You know, you just kind of stop the madness there. That's how I feel. Everybody, this is not profitable. You are wasting your time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do we have time still to talk? We detoured.
Had something we were like, we should talk about.
Okay, we might have to overflow into next week, which is fine. But I wanted to talk about, somebody asked about friendship and specifically the friendship with the podcast, which is an interesting interesting way to look at it. I think she was talking about a different podcast where they were talking like the hosts of the podcast were friends, and we're friends with the listeners, and we've gotten a lot of feedback, like people feeling like they know us very well, which they probably do know us really well by now. I mean, have we hidden anything?
Probably more well than they would like to.
Yeah, they know things about us that they never asked to know about us.
Because here we sit in the darkness behind Goodwill, and we feel like we're not unleashing too many secrets, but
we probably have.
We're speaking into a microphone, so.
Yeah, but it is funny because I recently found out that apparently I yawn prolifically through every episode.
You do that.
Guys, I'm so sorry, but that is indicative of the fact that I don't feel like we're talking to people. I feel like we're just behind Goodwill.
We're not on our best behavior, as you can all see.
You noticed that about us. So the question was, what's the role of, like, if you feel kinship with us because you are interested in what we're doing. I don't mean the details of our every life, but meaning like Christian, non-feminist women who have, like if there are a number of things that you line up with us on, that you may feel like we are friends, right? But then that's that question of, would it be wiser to be, real life friends, people who you actually see? And this person brought it up as something about a good definition of friendship is someone who might be praying for you, someone who would know what to be praying for you, and you would know how to be praying for them. So that was the definition sort of given, like Christian friendship.
Okay.
Does someone not need to know more about your life? And kind of how does something like this podcast fit in to that? And this always sounds a little harsh, I think, when I say this, but I mean it for the best, which is
I have no idea where you're going to go with this.
But you're bracing yourself. You're like,
Rach,
I might need to qualify whatever Rachel's about to say.
To qualify and push from the other direction.
Yes, I know you are. I can feel it happening. So
I'm girding up my loins.
Yeah, this is what I mean, is that I love friendships that spur me on to doing things and that spur the other person on to doing things. Static friendships are not worth having, in the sense of like gathering to just look at each other over coffee and not, I'm not trying to say it's not worth having. It's not worth having it that way. Like, if you're getting together with a friend and it is easy for you to just complain about your husband to your friend, and your friend doesn't do anything other than say you're such a good wife or something like that, don't worry.
Responds by complaining about her husband.
Right, don't worry, he's just such an idiot that he doesn't know how beautiful you are. Or something stupid like that. My point is that that's not a healthy friendship anyways. Like, that person, maybe if they were on board with things, might know how to pray for you if they weren't subsidizing your bad behavior at that moment anyways. And I love being in friendships where I know that I am being used by someone, and I love friendships where I know that I am learning and being pushed through that other person. But I think it's a definition of shoulder to shoulder kind of, are we working on the same goals? And in that sense, then we absolutely, that is what we're offering to all of our listeners, is that we want to be working on the same goals with all of you.
Yeah.
We want to be encouraging you on the way as you are. Some of you tell us things like you're doing your laundry and cleaning your house while you listen to us, because we want to be, we want to be encouraging you to be a more cheerful, godly wife and mother who is seeing the kingdom work before her, enjoying that. And so I guess the thing is that if you think of it in terms of shoulder to shoulder, we don't have to all know each other's birthdays and be thoughtful all the time to be actually actively encouraging one another in the Lord. And that it is a completely different kind of friendship.
Yeah, I would just say that I think that there's friendship is a very broad term, and I think that there are obviously closer friendships and more sort of wave at them across the grocery store kinds of more loose friendships and
acquaintances.
And then there are, I think, sometimes technology gives us this interesting kind of friendship where,
that we wouldn't have had before.
It's not the same as if we were next door and you could borrow a cup of sugar and babysit the kids if I had to run out really quick. It's not that kind of friendship, but it doesn't mean it's not a friendship at all. But I do think that...
I think it's more a category of, co-laborers.
But I think that friendship, if we're including in it unhealthy, you can have unhealthy friendships.
Right.
I really think Toby Sumpter has made this point before that I think is really quite profound, that when it comes to your entertainment standards...
Oh, yeah.
The people you spend your time with and you emotionally invest in some way. You care about that character on the show. You care about them.
It does not have to be a real live person for you to have invested your friendship in them.
Yes, and there are people who are more devastated about the closing of the final episode of a show than they are about an actual friend moving to another state. Because they care so much more about the fictional character. And his point is, the Bible doesn't tell you a lot about TV shows you should watch, but it has an awful lot to say about the friends. That you have.
And if you think about your entertainment standards as actually being company,
yes, what kind of company
are you keeping? Are you keeping company with a bunch of foul-mouthed heathens?
Yeah,
you are disobeying God.
Yeah, and I think that I'm sorry, this has diverted the conversation slightly, but I think it's important.
Did we have a real thread we were sticking to?
Here's our outline our whiteboard of all the points. No, I think that if you went through the book of Proverbs and you only pulled out every proverb about friendship and what should you look for in friends and what can the wrong friends do to you, and then you compared that to the people you spend your evenings with,
but also your evenings in total privacy and intimacy.
Yes.
Because you're not actually hanging out with those filthy friends down where the older ladies in the church will see you.
Where your pastor might bump into you.
Where you'd be like, whoa, do you hang out with these people?
Yeah, I see this on Facebook, and it actually really annoys me every time I see it.
Now we know.
Every time somebody will throw out, I need a new show to watch, and then people come galloping in with all of their recommends. And it really appalls me when you have Christian women who are recommending to each other pretty filthy stuff, and they're like, well, it's not family friendly.
Oh, my word.
It's pretty rough.
Or when people share links and say it's not safe for work. You can't. Yeah. You shouldn't click on this when you're in a public place because,
Yeah, or it's it's the F-bomb every third word, but it's incredible. Is
it worth all my time? While you're at home.
Yeah. And so
really?
if you're the kind of person that spends a lot of time watching that kind of show, where it's everything you watch is rated mature on Netflix or whatever, just go through the book of Proverbs and ask what Solomon would have to tell you about the company you're keeping. And does it rub off on you? We totally know that bad company actually corrupts good morals. You go into it with good morals and you come out with bad morals because the company you keep actually does have an impact on you. And I think that if you look at your the characters in the books you read, in the TV shows you follow, in the movies that you watch, whatever it is, if you are forming friendships, and granted they're like strange, kind of like vicarious friendships,
that require nothing of
that
you.
require nothing of
You
the
just
other
sit
person.
around and stuff your face with popcorn. Whereas actually,
or wine. You're drinking wine and being corrupted.
And you think like, but
in
if
the privacy of your own
I
home.
remember Grandpa saying that he couldn't stand to watch those things because all he wanted to do was climb into the screen and counsel all the characters. And it is so true, because you think, are you actually learning how to engage with sinners who need the gospel? Or are you learning how to be entertained by their destruction? Like, you are not acting like a Christian. If you were a Christian and your girlfriend came in the door to tell you who she just slept with, you had better be telling her something other than, oh wow, tell me more while I eat my popcorn. Like, hello. Like, is that what Christians do? But you're training yourself by constantly practicing that when someone comes to me and reveals their great immorality, I just go, oh. Like,
okay, but see, one time I did have a Christian woman tell me that she had a friend in the church who had confided in her that she had committed adultery. And this woman was telling me that her friend had told her that. And she was like, but I never even told my husband because I couldn't
violate her trust.
Yes. And I was like, what? I mean, your friend committed adultery and you're going to keep that one?
And really what you should do, like, all right, I'll be right back with the elders. Like, hold on. Like,
hold that thought.
Like, have you repented publicly? I'm like, have you repented to your husband? Not publicly. Like, have you repented? Like, what do we need to do to get this right? Like, we got to bring in all the people.
You don't get there without basically training yourself that
you have hardened your heart to think that it does not matter what someone does. You accept them as they are and you just move on to the next episode.
When actually
oh, but maybe in the next season she'll stop sleeping with him.
Yeah.
It would be better then.
And then
maybe they'll get it. Ooh, I have to know the details.
And now she's selling drugs.
Oh, could that have happened? Like, tell me more. And then it's like, instead of using the emotions that God gave us to be driven to greater holiness and effectiveness for the gospel, we're training ourselves to just be entertained by whatever a pagan society dishes up to us, and that we get passive and more passive about it until we're like, well, interfering in other people's lives just seems so not kind.
But see, I'm not saying that you can ever watch anything that has a sinner in it. I mean, we're not there. We're not at that place. But I do think that you cannot uncritically watch and then get emotionally attached to characters like that, because it doesn't matter if they don't exist. They can still be your friends and they can still corrupt you in the way a real friend actually could.
Totally. And I'm going to read it. Oh, finish it.
Well, I was going to say, on the flip side, I think you actually can have long distance sort of via electronics friendships with people who can encourage you and actually can exhort you to be more and more Christ-like and that kind of thing. And you can form friendships that way too. So I think it's different than the lady who lives down the street and you can go jogging together. It's not that kind of a friendship, but it doesn't mean it's not a friendship and that it can't be both used for building up or for tearing down. I think both are possible through these kinds of like strange friendships.
So I'm going to read a proverb since you were saying about this. I'm going to say, let's read a proverb specifically applying it in your mind to what kinds of shows you're watching.
Okay, go for it.
Like what kinds of series you've binged on.
Yeah.
Enter not into the path of the wicked, and go not in the way of evil men. Avoid it, pass not by it. Turn from it, and pass away. For they sleep not, except they have done mischief, and their sleep is taken away, unless they cause some to fall. For they eat the bread of wickedness, and drink the wine of violence. But the path of the just is as the shining light, that shineth more and more unto the perfect day. The way of the wicked is as darkness, they know not at what they stumble. My son, attend to my words, incline thine ear unto my sayings, let them not depart from thine eyes, keep them in the midst of thine heart, for they are life unto those that find them, and health to all their flesh. Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are all the issues of life. Put away from thee a froward mouth, and perverse lips put far from thee. Let thine eyes look right on, and let thine eyelids look straight before thee. Ponder the path of thy feet, and let all thy ways be established. Turn not to the right hand nor to the left. Remove thy foot from evil.
Yeah.
You think like, well, if you're talking about the latest season of Meth Dealers Gone Bonkers or whatever you're watching, or if you're talking about Game of Thrones that I hope you're not watching, and a porno incestuous mayhem of violence, and you're like, what do you think you should reflect on? Like, you are not keeping your heart with diligence, and out of it spring all the issues of life. You are not, like, you are listening to perversity and darkness, and instead of doing what you're supposed to be doing, like, don't do it.
And cheering for them, you know, just kind of like from your sofa is
Secretly.
so, yeah, but it's also like, how is that different from cheering for them in real life? Exactly.
Well, like, what if, okay, so say you're watching a couple of something bad happening, like on the TV, on the good old TV. I'm trying to think of an incident that might happen. Like, what's the difference between watching a couple fornicate on the TV versus if someone was doing so outside your window, pulling up a glass of wine and settling in?
like, oh,
what the heck are you doing? Like, this is not what where you should be, friend.
It's like, well, kids, I'm not sure that you're old enough, but Dad and I'll watch.
You know what?
So bad.
Wow. It's like, well, one thing, or better yet, put your hand over your husband's eyes while you watch.
So terrible.
Oh, honey, this nudist is outside. Cover your eyes while I watch. I'll tell you when they have passed. I will watch. And then it's
terrible.
like, open the window, dear, so we can better hear the words that they're using. I mean, like,
also, I have to say something, and this is an important distinction that I think people are too quick to miss. And that is that if you have on stage, like, let's say you're having a little drama production and you're doing Hamlet, and, you know, you've got the murder of the king, right? And you pretend to kill the king,
right.
and you drag the body off the stage.
And you're like, you know where you're going with this, yes.
Have pretended to commit murder on the stage. Everyone...
But good news, you
everyone
have not become a murderer.
Yeah, you didn't actually murder someone on the stage. But if you were to, say, strip down and sprint about in the booth up there on the stage...
You've actually done it for real, haven't you?
Have you pretended to be in the nude, or have you genuinely been in the nude?
Have you done it?
Have you done the thing? If you fornicate on stage, have you actually done that, or have you pretended to
We'll
do it?
answer it for you.
You
You've done
did
it. You've
and
done
so
it now.
being entertained...
Or you've pretended to fornicate and just been indecent and immodest,
Yeah.
but all the same,
so
still in sin.
So if you're watching a show that has, you know, whatever, let's say some sort of indecent scene happening, and you just carry on through it because, it's a story, it's pretend. It's like, no, that isn't actually pretend.
No,
that
part is actually real.
And so it is the same as if they did it outside your living room window, and you just hold up a comfy seat.
That part is not the actress pretending to be naked.
No.
That is the actress being naked. So you have to be like a little more like what I imagine someone's old great aunt Marge would be about it. You gotta channel some of that. You gotta be like, let's be practical here. This is not godliness. Because that's the thing with what happens is that people put a few Bible-ish words around it.
Or
to tell everyone, like, oh, this is like a super redemptive season of debauchery 101.
Although it's a lot of
redemptive.
Nudists and meth dealers, it's got redemptive themes.
It's so redemptive. Oh, yeah. And so they put that kind of thing in there to
Death
make
and resurrection.
Did you notice the Trinitarian overtones? Because you remember there was
it's a trinity of meth dealers.
It's amazing, yeah. And so the thing you have to realize about this is that it's whatever words you're using to describe it, you need to be a little more frank with yourself.
Yeah.
And a little more like, let's be real, this is not honoring God.
No.
And if there was some bit of this happening near us such that we could actually speak to the people involved,
you would need to tell them to be done.
What would we need to do with them? Like if we ran into a group of men planning to do a bank heist, who are the good guys there? Like, should they be given a pass because they have cool suits?
But I feel like
Maybe
what
not.
people often say is like, it doesn't bother me. Like, I'm okay with
I
it.
myself am very
I'm
impervious
okay
to
with
such
it.
things.
Whereas I feel like the bigger question is, but is God okay with it?
Yeah, like, is he pleased to see
And
you
luckily,
here?
he gave us a book
you
in
know
which
what?
he spelled it out.
You know what I just have to say,
He's
though?
not okay
This
with
is
it.
real rude, but whatever, I'm going to say it. It's like what if you have a dog or other animals, you know those things that they do that are just super unseemly?
Yeah.
Where you're just
We do
like,
know those. Yeah.
ow, I'm gonna eat that? Like, you sicko. You know, like,
Yeah.
just like hideous times from
Yeah.
the dog. I feel like that's our kind of, like, it's like we're doing that kind of thing, saying, doesn't bother me. I myself thrive on eating this sort of thing. Or like, where you're like, but you shouldn't. Like, do you see, like, even if you were thriving with this, you ought not. You ought not to do it.
Well, I
Like,
just feel like you've just more told us about yourself than anything else.
There's a redemptive hope that you
Which
will
is-
come to not thrive with this. Like, we're hoping that if you're fine with this, that maybe if you got out in some clear air, you would soon recognize that wasn't great. Like, you know,
Well,
it's just
I
like,
just feel
wow.
like this is if you're really fine with it, if it doesn't bother you, if you don't flinch,
It's neither here nor there to
then
you.
I feel like basically you have become the example of bad company corrupting good morals.
Right, if you no longer mind watching a great amount of sodomy and hedonism on the TV, then perhaps you have slipped from your first loves. You know,
Perhaps.
maybe we need to.
Or maybe you never got there in the first place. But
Yeah.
I think that if you think about your Netflix queue in the light of Solomon's words on friendship.
Is this wisdom? Is
Yeah.
this beauty? Like, is this holy?
And think about the verses about not even to speak of those things which are done by them in secret, much less, drink
Watch
your
them.
wine through the display
but
of it.
I think I said this recently when I was on Sheologian, so I'm repeating myself. But one of those things that strikes me is that when people are watching, especially mothers, when you're watching Netflix, presumably it is a holy smokes, that was a hard day, I want to put my feet up
Yeah.
and veg out kind of a moment.
Yeah.
Like, because when we talk, like, is that holy, people are kind of like, well, no, but I was so tired. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I think that this is just a weird mental problem that we have, which is that we do not become equipped for great obedience by wallowing in a little disobedience. like when we think, like, you don't
Yeah.
need a break from being in fellowship with God
No.
to get back. Like, if you're trying to do a good job of being a godly wife and mom at home, and I get it 100% about getting fried,
And
but
I'm
when
all
you are
about it.
tired
Like-
and zonky, do something that you can still do in the full joy of the
Yeah.
Lord and appreciating his good gifts.
And I get it. Like, yeah, sit down and put your feet up and have a glass of wine and watch a show to the glory of God and
Do it.
enjoy
Why? That's fine.
a lovely end of the day. But just have a bit of discretion about your friendships that you form in that hour of the evening.
Don't be a ding dong thinking that you can't press on with life if you haven't, because I think what often happens is it becomes the place people are trying to escape to.
Yeah.
You're not being equipped for your life.
No.
You're being increasingly dissatisfied with your life because
Yeah.
you want to escape
And
to
there's
this
nothing
alternate
wrong.
reality.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with having a break, and it's just a relaxing time. It doesn't have to be like, oh, you can only watch educational
but you
shows.
Don't, no, but you don't want to try to be. You don't want to be watching a show that you would feel awkward if the Lord walked in on you watching something.
No.
You know, like, you have to think about that. That it's
Or your
not.
pastor walked in,
Well,
or your
yeah, but I
mother.
mean, like, you think
your
you
grandmother.
want to still be honoring God
Yeah, you
when you're
do.
taking time off, because
Yes.
you can rest in the Lord,
Because
and you can
But what are friendships if not those times that are
joyful
off?
time along the way. Yeah, like.
and Solomon has words about it. Let's go back to Solomon. Like, he has words.
Just bring
What-
it back to the words of
What
Proverbs.
kinds of friends ought you to have? and
That
what
section I read, by
kinds
the way,
ought
is
you
in
not?
Proverbs 4, which is really applicable to everyone's entertainment standards.
Yeah.
It's applicable for all of us. So, okay, Becca, do you have a tip?
You or rude? Because you told me you had a tip.
I think if we were like I do have a tip, but it's just I've been talking too much.
Calling me out.
You're just not holding up your side of the ladder. It's just like
I'm doing my best.
So, my tip, the best tip I can think of on the fly is we have a basket full of toilet paper instead of toilet paper rolls, not fluffed toilet paper.
That makes it sound like you have just a big wad of loose Kleenexes in a basket.
But it's because at our last house,
You're gonna have to start over.
At
with
our
this.
last house, we could never find the little spring-loaded things that go in there, and I kept buying new ones, and they kept getting like knocked out, and then someone would step on them and they break, and it'd be like the spring. It's like we can't keep things like that together in my house, so we've sort of fallen down the way until we just keep a large basket of toilet paper rolls in the bathroom.
Yeah, rolls.
And you know
They're
what?
on rolls, guys.
You know
it's
what?
not just fluffed.
Sometimes you think, why not save myself some energy?
But doesn't it end up with a lot of little nubbins of toilet paper rolls in a basket?
No. I mean, it's fine. No.
It works out.
It works out fine. Every once in a while, I have to go in there and I'm like, oh, I'm yawning.
You're doing it.
I did it. I have to go in there and pull, there'll be like an empty roll on the side, but it's not like that's a real trial.
Well, I have a basket of toilet paper also, but I do keep one at a time on the roll.
Well, now that we're at Mom and Dad's house, I think that their toilet paper holder fell out of the, like, there's not one there, and so I think I'd have to go buy one of those.
So, she's just saying you can cut corners, guys.
I'm just saying, feel free to just, be like, why are we bothering with this? Why don't we just have a large bushel basket full of toilet paper rolls? Although that was why I was discouraged the time that I accidentally bought some eco-conscious toilet paper that did not have the cardboard center.
Oh, yeah.
So all of the rolls just got smacked flat and looked like a real discouragement. And someone who was there at Parish Group said to me, so how did you take all of the centers out of the toilet paper? I was like, oh my word. That it actually looked like I'd gone in there with pliers. Really needed them for a craft. Real had to whip through the whole stash.
Working on your fire starters.
Oh. My forbidden fire starters. Guys, I mean, there's nothing like the patriarchy to really put the kibosh on great things. like my Dryerland toilet paper tube fire starters. If you haven't been with us long, I'm sorry, it's an inside joke. I think I have. Yeah, I have.
Really?
I had this hot idea. I was like, I always have toilet paper tubes, and I always have Dryerland, and
these things are always with us.
And if you stuff a toilet paper tube full of Dryerland and then you roll it up in wax paper, it's a fire starter. Okay. I still see the sensible nature of this. And I was like, well, look, it's a bunch of junk I already have. Yeah. Makes us the fire starter. And my husband was like, no. I will not live a life where my wife is handcrafting toilet paper fire starters. And he was like, I frankly forbid you from treasuring your Dryerland.
And you're like, where are the Christian feminists when I need them?
Oh, the one time that I've really been put off by this patriarchy situation, Luke is allowed to ban toilet paper fire starters in our home. I'm gonna give him that, guys. I'm like, man, lost a lot in this whole submission gig, but no.
You can just go gather up some pine cones.
It's just a joke. Yeah, dip them in wax, get them going. Yeah, no, he just felt like there was something truly undignified about having that. He's like, I'm gonna treat myself to a real man's fire starter. It's like you get the impression like I've been like, I'm gonna sew you your jeans from here on. It's like, one thing you're gonna not do is sew my jeans. So with
wow.
that summary.
Oh.
That's not what I was doing with the pliers and the toilet paper rolls, but it could have been. It could have been if I was running a disobedient wife Etsy business. Oh wow!
Be your Etsy store. Is the
Disobedient wife.
So
Woo,
basically
doggy! All right. So
some forbidden goods.
forbidden fire starters. Jeans no man wants to wear.
Fire starters no man wants to be a part of.
Oh, all right, everybody.
Woo! All right.
It's been good.
We'll see you
next
another time.
Bye.